Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Really, if you clicked on this video today, I already know something about you. You're hurting, you're tired, you might even feel like you've been left behind by the world, or maybe down, you're wondering if God has left you too. Maybe life has been heavy lately. You feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood. You might be smiling on the outside, showing up for work, being strong for your family, holding it together. But inside, you're carrying this quiet ache that says, "Where is everybody? Why does it feel like I'm walking through this alone?" And friend, if that's where you are right now, please hear me. You're not alone. Not here. Not in this space. And absolutely not in the eyes of the God who sees everything and still chooses you every single time. I've been there. I remember a time in my life when everything looked fine from the outside. I was showing up, getting things done, checking off boxes, going through the motions. But inside, I was wrecked. I felt like everyone had moved on. Friends were busy, family was distant, and honestly, I started to believe the lie that maybe even God had stepped away too. I wasn't hearing him like I used to. I wasn't feeling that sense of peace or presence. I'd pray and feel like my words were just bouncing off the ceiling. I'd open my Bible and nothing would speak to me. And the silence? That silence was deafening. It started to sink in like a fog. Maybe I messed up too much, maybe I drifted too far, maybe I wasn't worth the effort anymore. And that feeling, that slow, creeping sense of abandonment, it's one of the loneliest places the human heart can go. But here's the truth I want to whisper into your heart today. Just because you feel abandoned doesn't mean you are. Feelings are real, but they're not always true. And when your heart is screaming, "Where is God?" I promise you, He's closer than your breath. He's not pacing the floor in frustration. He's not giving you the silent treatment. He hasn't walked out on you. He hasn't lost your location. He hasn't grown tired of your pain. In fact, it's in these very moments when you feel the most alone that He is leaning in the closest. And I want this time we spend together today to be like a gentle conversation, just you and me and God, sitting quietly, breathing together, reminding your heart of what's true, that you are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are not left behind. You are not abandoned. I want to walk with you through this, not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who's felt the weight of silence, who's cried in secret, who's wondered if I'd ever feel connected again. And I want to tell you, there is hope. There is healing. There is presence, not just around you, but with you, right here, right now. And that's what healing prayer is really all about. It's not some magical formula or perfect words you have to say. It's a moment of coming home, of exhaling, of letting yourself be held again, even when you're not sure how, even when it's been a while, even when it feels like nothing will change. So if you've been carrying that ache, that "God, where are you" ache, I invite you to stay with me. Let's lean in, let's take a breath together, let's allow healing to begin, not because everything is fixed, but because we're no longer pretending we're fine. Let's sit in the presence of a God who sees your tears, who holds your questions, who is not offended by your doubts, and who already moving towards you even if you don't feel it yet. Because he hasn't left. He never will. And today, right now, we're going to press into that together. Heart to heart, step by step, with no pressure, no shame, and no need to pretend. I want to tell you about someone I met a few years ago. Her name is Jenna. Maybe you'll recognize a piece of yourself in her story. Jenna was one of those people who lit up every room she walked into. She had a contagious laugh, the kind that made you smile without even knowing why. On the surface, she had it all together. Successful career, good friends, active in her church. But deep down, she was crumbling. You wouldn't know it from the outside, but Jenna carried a heavy burden of loneliness. And it all came to a head one fall afternoon when she came home to an empty apartment and finally let the mask drop. She curled up on the floor, completely undone. She told me later that it felt like the walls were closing in. Her friends had gotten married and moved on. Her family, while well-meaning, lived states away and didn't understand what she was dealing with. And God? Well, in her own words, she said, it felt like he'd packed up and moved out too. That night, Jenna cried harder than she had in years. She wasn't just sad, she felt abandoned, invisible. The kind of emptiness that doesn't just ache in your chest but echoes in your soul. She said she tried to pray, but no words would come. Just silence, just tears, just this overwhelming sense of, why am I even here? But somewhere in that darkness, somewhere in that hollow ache, she remembered something she hadn't thought about in a long time. A line from a worship song she used to love when she was a teenager. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. She whispered it, barely audible, over and over again, not even really believing it, just clinging to it like a lifeline. She didn't know it then, but that whisper, that was the beginning of healing prayer. From that night on, Jenna started doing one simple thing, sitting still for 10 minutes every day. No fancy prayers, no eloquent words, just 10 minutes of silence, honesty, and vulnerability. Some days she'd just cry. Some days she'd ask God one question, are you still there? And little by little, no lightning bolts, no thunderous signs, just the gentle awareness that she wasn't alone. One night, she said it hit her like a wave, not a feeling but a knowing. Like her soul leaned into God's chest and finally exhaled. She didn't hear an audible voice, but in her spirit, she sensed something sacred, something quiet but steady. I never left. That moment marked a turning point. Jenna didn't suddenly have all her problems solved. Her circumstances didn't change overnight, but something in her shifted. She no longer walked around with that crushing sense of abandonment. Instead, she walked with a steady companionship, an invisible but deeply felt nearness. She began to journal after her silent prayers. She'd write things like, today I didn't feel anything, but I still showed up. And weeks later, today I felt held. It was healing in motion, not dramatic, not loud, but real. And more importantly, lasting. Jenna told me once that healing prayer saved her life. Not because it erased her loneliness, but because it reminded her she was never truly alone to begin with. That even in her darkest moment, God was not offended by her doubt or wearied by her sadness. He was there, holding space, holding her, even when she couldn't feel it. And friend, if you've ever felt that kind of soul-deep loneliness, if you've ever cried into your pillow at 2 a.m., wondering if God still hears you, I want you to know you are not the only one. Jenna's story is your story, my story, all of ours, really. Because the ache of abandonment is something every human heart brushes up against. But it doesn't get the final word, God does. And he says, I will never leave you or forsake you. You see, healing prayer, especially in those seasons when you feel abandoned, it's not about fixing everything right away. It's not about saying the right words or praying the perfect prayer. It's about showing up with your whole heart, even when it's bruised, even when it's breaking. It's about sitting in the presence of God, raw and unfiltered, and trusting that he's not going to flinch, that he can handle your honesty, that he welcomes it. So many of us, when we feel abandoned, start to believe this silent lie, that God only wants us when we're strong, when we're full of faith, when we have our lives together. But that couldn't be further from the truth. God is the shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one who's lost. The father who runs to the prodigal son while he's still a long way off. The friend who never walks away when the pain gets messy. Healing prayer isn't about performance. It's about presence. And when you come to him feeling abandoned, healing prayer becomes a way of saying, God, I don't feel you right now, but I'm going to choose to believe you haven't left me. I'm going to talk to you even in the silence. I'm going to reach for you even when my hands are trembling. And here's what's wild. Something happens in that space. Maybe not right away, maybe not with fireworks or angel choirs, but something does happen. Peace starts to crack through the numbness. Hope begins to flicker in places you thought were dead. The tears don't stop immediately, but they start to feel a little lighter. You might even find yourself waking up one morning and realizing you're breathing easier, that you made it through the night without feeling like you were drowning, that you don't feel as alone as you did yesterday. And that's the sacred work of healing prayer. It's the Holy Spirit ministering to your soul when your mind doesn't have the words. Romans 8:26 says that the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. Isn't that beautiful? Even when you can't pray, when all you can do is sigh or cry, he's praying for you. He's standing in the gap. You are not abandoned. In fact, when you feel the most distant, God is the most near. Psalm 34:18 tells us, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. He doesn't keep his distance. He doesn't withdraw. He draws near. And sometimes healing comes not in the absence of pain, but in the realization that you're not carrying it alone anymore. When you sit in healing prayer, you're choosing to let God enter into that ache. You're saying, I don't want to carry this alone anymore. You're giving him access, not because he needs your permission, but because he longs to partner with you in your restoration. Healing prayer becomes this sacred act of trust. Even when your trust feels fragile, it becomes a lifeline, a way to tether your heart back to God when the storms of life have made you feel unmoored. And when you do that, when you keep coming back, day after day, breath after breath, something holy unfolds. The cracks in your soul become places where light can seep through. The silence becomes a canvas for God's whispers. And the abandonment you felt begins to melt into presence, into nearness, into belonging. So if you've been feeling like God left you behind, if the silence has screamed louder than your prayers, let me just remind you, you are still seen, you are still heard, and you are still loved, deeply, relentlessly, eternally. God has not moved. His arms are still open, His Spirit is still reaching, His love is still chasing. And in this space, this quiet moment of healing prayer, you get to come back. Not because you ever truly left, but because your heart is finally soft enough to receive what's always been true. You are not alone. You never were. And you never will be. So how do we actually practice healing prayer when we're feeling abandoned, when our hearts are heavy and the silence feels unbearable? It's actually a lot simpler than you might think. First, just find a quiet space. It doesn't have to be some perfect, peaceful place. It could be your room, your car parked somewhere quiet, or even the bathroom if that's the only space you've got. What matters most isn't the setting, it's your heart. Just show up. That's all God is asking. You don't need eloquent words or a perfectly memorized prayer. Just start with honesty. Sit down, take a few deep breaths, and say something like, God, I feel so alone. I feel like you've gone silent. But I'm here, and I'm listening. That's it. That's a prayer. That's healing prayer. When you open that space, you give God room to meet you right where you are. No masks, no filters, just raw, beautiful, real connection. And if the words won't come, just sit in silence. Let your tears pray for you. Let your sighs speak volumes. God understands every unspoken ache. You could even try journaling what you're feeling before and after your quiet time. Write it like a letter to God. I don't feel you today. I'm scared. I'm tired. I feel left behind. And then wait. You don't have to force anything. Maybe play some soft worship music in the background if that helps set your heart at ease. Maybe repeat a verse over and over like a lifeline. Something like, you will never leave me or forsake me, or the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Let those truths anchor you while you sit in His presence. Healing doesn't happen in a rush. It happens in those small, sacred moments when you keep showing up, even when you're unsure, even when you're numb. Some people find it helpful to set a timer, just 10 minutes a day. It's not about checking a box, but about building a rhythm, a habit of opening your soul to the one who loves it most. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. The silence starts to feel less scary and more like a refuge. You begin to notice a stillness in your spirit, a gentle reassurance that you're being held. You may not hear a booming voice from heaven, but you'll sense something holy. Maybe a thought that gives you peace. Maybe a picture in your mind that comforts you. Maybe just the strength to take one more breath. That's healing in action. Another way to engage in healing prayer is by walking and praying. Sometimes our bodies need movement, especially when our hearts feel stuck. Take a walk and talk to God as if He were walking right beside you. Tell Him about the pain. Tell Him what's felt like abandonment. And then pause. Listen. Look at the sky. Notice the wind. Pay attention to anything that makes you feel like you're not alone, because you aren't. Those moments are full of reminders that God is near. Creation itself sings it. The sunset whispers it. The breeze carries it. God has not left you, friend. He's right here. And one of my favorite ways to engage in healing prayer is to imagine sitting at the feet of Jesus. Close your eyes and picture Him in front of you, eyes full of kindness, arms wide open. Picture yourself telling Him everything. Jesus, I feel forgotten. I don't understand why you're so quiet. And picture Him listening, not interrupting, not correcting, just being fully present. Let that image hold you. That's not your imagination running wild. That's your spirit remembering what's true. He is Emmanuel, God with us, with you. So don't overthink it. Just begin. Show up in the silence. Bring the ache. Whisper the fear. And let God meet you right there. That's where healing begins. In the ordinary. In the quiet. In the space where you say, God, I'm here, and trust that He's already been waiting. When you do that day by day, little by little, you'll start to feel the shift. Maybe not all at once, but in ways that feel real and steady. The abandonment you've been carrying starts to lose its grip, and the presence of God becomes something you don't just believe in. You begin to experience it. That's the beauty of healing prayer. It invites you back into the arms of the one who never left. Now, I know it's one thing to talk about healing prayer and how powerful it can be, but it's another thing to actually keep coming back to it, especially when you're exhausted, discouraged, or honestly just don't feel anything at all. And if that's you, let me say this. You're not failing. You're not weak. You're human. Building a habit of healing prayer isn't about being perfectly consistent or always feeling spiritually on. It's about creating space in your day, even just a few minutes, to remind your soul that God is still there. So here are a few little things. Simple, doable things that can really help make healing prayer a part of your everyday life, even when life feels heavy. One of the most powerful tips I can give is to pair your prayer time with something comforting and familiar. For example, maybe every morning when you make your coffee or tea, you take that first quiet sip and use that moment to breathe in God's presence. Let it be your cue. You might say something like, God, I'm here. I still feel kind of lost, but I'm opening this moment to you. That's healing prayer. Or maybe it's in the evening when you light a candle or settle under a blanket. Use that as your healing moment. Anchor the habit to something gentle and grounding. Over time, your brain starts to associate those quiet rituals with peace, comfort, and God's nearness. Another tip, use your phone for something good. I know we all get distracted with notifications, but what if you set a daily reminder that simply says, pause, God's here, or you're not abandoned, or 5-minute healing prayer. Nothing fancy, just something that nudges you to remember that your soul needs this space. You could even create a simple playlist, just a few worship songs that calm your heart. and hit play when you need help settling into that healing space. Music can open up emotions we didn't know were buried, and it can soften us enough to let God in. And journaling, oh man, it's so powerful. You don't need to be a writer. Just take a small notebook or use the Notes app on your phone and jot down what you're feeling after each prayer time. It doesn't have to be deep. Just a sentence or two. I felt peace today. Or still struggling, but I showed up. Or even I cried again, but it felt safe this time. When you look back after a few weeks, you'll be amazed at what God's been doing even when you didn't notice. Your journal becomes a testimony of healing in progress. It helps you see the slow but steady change happening in your soul. Some people find it helpful to create a little healing corner in their home. It doesn't have to be fancy. Maybe it's a chair with a blanket, a small cross or candle nearby, or a sticky note with a scripture verse. That physical space becomes your invitation. It reminds you, this is where I meet with God. This is where I bring the ache. This is where I let Him speak. And if you can't create a corner, even just keeping a small object in your pocket, a smooth stone, a little wooden cross, a ring, can become your touch point. Something that reminds you in the middle of your day that God is close and you can whisper a healing prayer anytime. Also, don't go on this journey alone. Healing prayer can feel incredibly personal and private, but it's even more powerful when it's part of a community. Maybe you have a friend you can check in with, someone who's walking through their own healing journey. You don't have to share everything, but just sending a message like, "Hey, I prayed today," can make a huge difference. Or if you're comfortable, join a small group or online prayer community where you can be supported and reminded that others are in this with you. There's strength in knowing you're not the only one trying to stay connected when the world feels silent. And finally, give yourself grace. Healing prayer isn't about doing it right. Some days you'll feel connected. Other days it'll feel like you're talking into a void. But every time you show up, something sacred happens. Every whisper, every tear, every moment of silence becomes part of a holy conversation with a God who never left your side. The enemy wants you to believe that if you miss a day, you might as well quit. But that's a lie. Just pick up where you left off. God doesn't measure your worth by your consistency. He treasures your heart, your intention, your willingness to keep coming back. So maybe today you try one small thing. Maybe you write down a verse. Maybe you sit for 2 minutes in silence. Maybe you walk and talk with God while running errands. Whatever it is, just begin. Let it be imperfect. Let it be real. Let it be yours. And over time, as the days pass, you'll begin to notice that what once felt like abandonment now feels more like intimacy. What once felt like silence now holds gentle whispers. And that's the beauty of healing prayer. It doesn't just restore what was broken, it reawakens what was always meant to be alive in you. God's presence, God's peace, and God's unwavering love. Hey, before we end our time together today, I just want to speak straight to your heart one more time. Maybe you've been walking around with this ache inside, a quiet kind of loneliness that no one really sees. Maybe people are around you, but still you feel invisible. Maybe you've been crying out in your own way, asking, God, are you still there? I want you to hear this loud and clear. Yes, He is. He's closer than your next breath. He sees you. He hears you. He hasn't turned away, not even once. And you know what? You're not watching this video by accident. I truly believe that. You're here right now because God wanted to remind you that you haven't been abandoned. Even if others left, even if your circumstances feel too heavy, even if you're tired of holding on, He is holding on to you. He's been carrying you even when you didn't know it. So take this moment to trust Him again, even just a little. Start small. Whisper, God, I still need you, and that's enough. He meets you right there. And hey, if this message stirred something in you, if you felt seen, comforted, or just a little more hopeful, I'd love for you to be a part of this journey with us. Hit that subscribe button and join our family here at Live According to God's Word. This is a space where you'll find healing, hope, encouragement, and real conversations that meet you right where you are. And please, don't be shy. Leave a comment below and share your story. What are you going through? What healing are you praying for? I read every single one and I pray over them. You're not just a number here, you're a soul, and you matter. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I'm so honored to walk this journey with you. Until next time, keep holding on, keep praying, and remember, God hasn't left you. Not now. Not ever.